I've been hearing a lot about functional programming. What's all the hype about? Should I learn a functional language? So, my personal experience on this, I'd been hearing a lot about functional programming before I actually gave it a try myself. And I have been doing object-oriented programming for a long time. And when I started doing object-oriented programming, I feel like it took a number of years before I really learned to do it successfully. I feel like my natural way to think about and solve problems is to think about them in terms of objects. So the idea of functional programming was a hard sell for me. Eventually there was sort of enough momentum with the people around me, and there was an actual group of people here at Gaslight that all decided to learn Clojure together, and I decided to join in and give it a try. And based on my experience, I would definitely encourage everyone to jump in and give it a try as well, even if, as I was, maybe your initial inclination is to be a little bit suspicious. That's totally okay. The basic thing that I've learned about functional programming as I've tried to do it is, like any other advancement in programming, the whole goal is to give me less to have to think about at once. The whole challenge of programming for me is really, my brain has limited space, and the problems that I'm trying to solve are not necessarily limited in scope. And in order to actually be able to effectively solve these problems, I have to be able to break it down into finite pieces. And what I found in functional programming is breaking things down into very small, discrete functions that don't have any side effects mean I can think about that function purely by itself. I know that there's nothing else that I have to fill my brain with in order to be able to reason about or build that function as I'm building it. And that's really liberating and interesting, and it's definitely started to affect the way I build code, even in object-oriented programming languages. There's also a lot to be said for the kind of challenges that come along in object-oriented programming with mutatable state. It's really hard to reason about an object when you're not sure what state it's in at the given time that code is executing. And with functional programming, that's just not a thing that can happen anymore. I've also started to dig into other languages than just Clojure. I've also started digging into Elixir lately. And Elixir, in some ways, is even more interesting in that beyond just functional programming, which it certainly has, functional programming, I would say that the difference between functional and object-oriented programming is with object-oriented programming, the central abstraction is the object. In functional programming, the central abstraction is the function. I would say Elixir is maybe even different still in that Elixir seems to have as its central abstraction the process. And I would almost classify Elixir as a process-oriented programming language. And it's really interesting to me, the idea of decomposing a large system into processes that are sending messages to each other but don't have mutable state. In a lot of ways, it harkens back to the original vision of object-oriented programming as suggested by Kay, I believe, the guy who invented Smalltalk. So I would definitely encourage people to dig into functional programming. And really, I'm not naturally a programming language nerd. As I think about people who are, I think about my good friend Jim Wyrick, who passed this past year. He was a natural language nerd, and he would encourage me to explore programming languages, and he led me from Java to Ruby. So I'm not naturally a language geek, but every time that I actually dig into programming languages that are new to me and different, I feel like I definitely have my mind expanded and become a better developer. And that's true whether I decide to embrace that language or not. But a lot of times I do. I've moved from Java to Ruby. I don't expect Ruby will be the language I use exclusively at the end of my career, whenever that is, eventually there's going to be better things that are coming along, and whether that's Clojure or Elixir or something completely different, I'm not sure I know. But it's really it's a fun adventure to learn to do this stuff better.